This is a very special discussion for me, as this is basically where my life-changing experience in nature began. I was blown away by my stay in the Amazon rainforest, and this lady was one of the main driving forces that provided that one-in-a-lifetime experience. Honor as the CEO of the highly prestigious British Explorer Society, I'm joining her today at this stunning red brick period building at the Albert Hall Mansions in Kensington, London, that directly overlooks famous Royal Hyde Park. So what was the first thing that got you excited about the outdoors and nature?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I grew up on a farm, but when I was growing up, we didn't see nature and the outdoors as something that was for us. It was just something you had to put up with because we farmed in it and got wet in it. I think it took me a long time to realise that the outdoors was something that could transform things for you. And it was when I was much older, I was building schools and working in education, and realised that lots of young people I was working with were not having a great time in school at all, and also they weren't getting to enjoy the outdoors that was on their doorstep, and that felt wrong. And I had a chance to take some young people on a trip to Costa Rica, to the jungle, and I went as a governor of the school, and the young people I went with were pretty challenging. They were really exciting. I loved them a lot, and I think I had as an amazing a time as they did, if not more. And I wept buckets when we left the jungle, and I realised that those kinds of experiences were as important as anything that could go on in the classroom. And all of the young people I went with went on to do incredible things, and a lot of them had had a pretty rough experience of growing up, and they were all capable of amazing stuff, and they all showed it while we were on that expedition. So it was clear to me then that being an amazing place wasn't just a privilege because it was incredible and we saw jaguars and all that kind of thing. It was because it gave young people a chance to thrive in a way that they hadn't at school. And I think something clicked at that point. And I thought I'd really like to do more with this because school was not really working for a lot of those young people. So there you go.
Thank you for sharing. I didn't know that as well.
Yeah, it was a really big deal for me.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It even reminds me a bit of myself in that sense, and it's crazy that other people have been able to actually, you've noticed that other people, that it works for them as well, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was even true of my son, who was, I think he was getting close to being expelled from school. He was constantly in trouble, and I think the outdoors kind of saved him as well. And he was lucky, in that he got to university and had all that kind of, all those sort of positive experiences. He had quite a lot of privilege in that sense, but it was bouldering for him that helped him keep going at college. And I think without it, I'm not sure he'd have made it. So I think it's hardly, it's not statistically anything except that I know lots of people individually, and especially younger people, whose lives have changed shape because of the way the outdoors has worked for them. And it's also because I don't like, forgive me, I don't like sport. Sports never work for me. Competitive sport just doesn't work for me. And I know there are lots of people, yourself included, for example, who love football. But challenging yourself in the outdoors, even if it's just on your own, can be amazing and just as challenging as sport. And I can see the difference that makes. So that's been a big deal.
Thank you.
That's all right.
So also, I'd like to know, how did you get involved with British Explorer Society, and how did you actually become the CEO as well?
Okay, it sort of goes back to my son again. He was in America, and I thought I'd been working in my previous job, the one where I was building schools, for about 6 years, and I thought I might have a break. And I stepped down from there, and then this mad job came up at British Exploring Society, and I'd never heard of the organisation, and it seemed to do exactly the stuff that I'd been talking about, and I wasn't sure about it because it seemed like an organisation that maybe wasn't for me. I mean, it was quite sort of military in its history, and it looked a bit old-fashioned maybe, and all the previous bosses had been men. And all my friends kept saying, "You're so going to do this." And I was like, I'm not so sure, I'm not so sure. But then I came and met the team and I was completely hooked. Because, I mean, you know the people here.
Definitely.
They're incredible. They're some of the most passionate people I've ever met. And then I met some of the volunteers, because this is a community as much as it's an organisation. And then I realised I wanted the job really, really, really badly. So I went for the job same as everyone else, and amazingly they gave it to me. My pitch, I suppose, to be the CEO was that I wanted to take this incredible thing that this organisation has always done about expeditions and make sure that as many different kinds of people could have access to it as possible, which it was already doing, but it wasn't doing it on all its programmes. And that's what I've been championing. So yeah, I interviewed like everyone else. There
Definitely. Oh, you made me pick up on two key things there.
Like, okay.
One of them is being a female and being a CEO. Has there been any like challenges that you kind of have faced, or?
It's a really good question, because I did worry that, because I think it's one of the things that maybe you'll have come across, given the way that you're championing people getting into the outdoors, which is that there are lots of reasons for people to think that the outdoors is not for them. I think especially in the UK, we think of the outdoors as basically being for white blokes with great teeth and who march up hills and stick flags in them, and it's not true anymore. But you do worry, don't you, if you haven't done a job like that, or if you haven't been in the outdoors and you don't know the names of things, and you think it's this special privileged world that's not for you. But I do like a challenge. And I have to say that people in the outdoors are incredibly welcoming. It's not a problem at all. I've been in other sectors which have been much less welcoming than this one. It's full of people who basically make magic happen, and they tend to go, yes, and then try and work out how to make it a reality. So I had to prove myself, but it wasn't made difficult for me at all. And our head of expeditions here is a woman too, and we have about 50-50 men and women on our board. So in that sense, it's quite an equal place. The thing we still struggle with is that, which is what makes what you're doing so brilliant, is that lots of young people from more diverse communities still don't think the outdoors is for them, and whether that's from city environments or whether it's because they're from kind of black or minority ethnic backgrounds, they just don't necessarily feel welcome in the outdoors, or they don't know the words for half of this stuff that they think is important, most which we know is not important at all, or it's because they're really small, or because they're really big, or because they think they're the wrong shape, which they're not. All of this stuff is what we've got to get over. So me being a woman was the least of my problems, I think. But no, it hasn't been a problem here, and I champion any woman getting into the outdoors, because it's a place where women can learn their strength, and you can actually have a kind of equality that you might not have in the boardroom, and you don't have to pretend to be a bloke, because women have particular skills in the outdoors which make them invaluable on an expedition, and you know this, you can translate those skills to lots of other environments. So no, I think it's served me well being a woman in this job.
Thank you. And also, you mentioned about the diversity thing.
Yeah.
So have you noticed there's been a change in diversity over your time being CEO, or generally in the outdoors?
Yeah, I mean, we're only little, but we've moved now to, I think, maybe about 30% of the young people we work with say that they describe themselves as coming from Black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds, which is fantastic. The vast majority of young people we work with now come from communities where they are severely financially disadvantaged. We also, maybe about 25% of the young people we work with have mental and physical impairments or long-term illness. And we're working really hard at that. So we run expeditions now specifically for young people who have physical impairment. So that's why we do lots of paddling, because it's really good for upper limb disability. And we work with lots of partners to try and make sure that young people who wouldn't ever put themselves forward, because why would you? You know, if it looks really scary, and if you think it's for white blokes with great teeth, you're just not going to say yes, are you? So we need to work with partners who know the young people they work with really well, to encourage them and support them to come forward. So yeah, it's getting better, and we've got a lot of work to do. And in terms of leaders, That's where the real challenge is. So in terms of young people, fantastic. We work with brilliant young people, but now we need to change the whole culture of the outdoor sector, which will take much longer. So we need to train up the outdoor leaders so that you can be what you can see. So you'll see, you know, the leader on the mountain, or the leader in the jungle, or the leader when you're on the ice floe is someone that you recognise and is like you. But that will take much longer across the sector. There's an understanding across the whole sector that it needs to change. What I worry about is how fast it's going to change. So we're starting a commission next month, working with our president, Marvin Rees, who's the Mayor of Bristol, and a few other individuals who can help give us a good kick to make sure that we're setting ourselves really practical ways of making things change. I don't think it's enough to just say it needs to change. We need to work out how.
Yeah, that's really important, in fact.
Yeah,
really important. And that makes me really happy as well about how you guys are actually making those steps to try to get to that kind of destination as well.
Yeah, we have to. Otherwise, we don't have no charity has a right to be here, and unless we're actively changing. You know, we've been around for 90 years, and I'd like us to be around for another 90 years, but that will only be possible if we are genuinely serving the needs of the people who live around us in society. So yeah, we have to change, but everyone wants us to. You know, our leaders want to change, all the staff here want to change, and it makes life way more interesting, because if our work is about, you know, creating great leaders like you, we're missing out on huge amounts of talent if we're only serving a tiny bit of society. I mean, it's just silly, isn't it? I mean, my future depends on there being loads of great and talented adults who are sorting out the enormous amount of crap going on out there.
Yeah.
And that depends on us finding young people from every corner of society to give them a chance to learn. So it's just practical, really.
Also, you said about the expeditions you're running now with the paddling and stuff like that. Is there like local, because I went to the Amazon, is there more like local expeditions that people can go on?
Well, we're doing stuff in the UK more, partly because of the pandemic, but also because we work with, for example, young people who might be asylum seekers and they can't get passports, and so we didn't want to exclude young people who literally couldn't get overseas. Obviously Scotland's another country, but you don't currently need a passport. And so we can work with younger people, because to get overseas you really do need to be sort of 16 or more. But also because we're addressing the environmental challenge over time. If we serve young people and want them to have a great future, we can't be partially responsible for damaging that future. So we're looking at sustainability. We might be looking at more voyages, because we need to think about, I mean, we were around before there were any commercial flights. So there may be some answers to how we look at sustainability in our history, where we used to sail, or we used to basically take ships to destinations and stay much longer. So we have to think about lots of different solutions. And, you know, we've also been we've created our own continent, Wildestan, during lockdown, so we could have virtual adventures. And that means both we can get to more young people, but also young people who would never be able to join us on expedition because of either health reasons, or because of their commitments at home, or because they're not ready yet. And we've got young people joining us in Scotland this year who, yes, last year would not have felt able to, either because they had anxiety issues or communication issues and had to go on that journey with us. So it's felt we're constantly thinking about how we can change things and move forward so that there are lots of different ways of people joining us, and that's really rewarding. But we have lots of different challenges still to face, and it may be that we have to change over the next 20 years, and then we can do longer haul stuff, for example, when flights become much greener. Who knows? I mean, it depends how innovative you lot are. And we're all dependent on young people, basically. And if you fix stuff, we'll be able to go back to doing major adventures in Greenland. Who knows? We've got time.
Definitely. I agree that young people are the future.
Absolutely. Quite literally. So we have to give you the tools to be able to do that, and also not mess things up in the meantime.
So the reason why I actually wanted to come down and speak to you is actually to let you know about what I'm actually working on.
Yes, please.
And I know you know already about how I got into the outdoors already, which is through you guys, of course. And you guys are amazing, of course. And you're creating these opportunities for young people like me. And as you've already said, trying to make it more accessible for more young people, whether that's through people that have disabilities or from their backgrounds. And I find that that's amazing, the work that you guys are doing, and especially someone like you that's leading such an amazing organization. And yeah, I just wanted to like kind of talk about as well. I got involved through the fact of my circumstances as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of that kind of, as we've spoken about as well, can be difficult for like other young people that aren't able to kind of go to a youth club and see that opportunity, or like we've discussed already, get into the outdoors through that. So yeah, that brings me literally to the fact of me starting City Girl in Nature. So City Girl Nature, the initiative kind of started in December, and that was all about trying to get people from inner cities into the outdoors, and the love for nature as well. And literally that kind of stemmed back to the fact of my way of getting involved in it. And also I was just feeling like I've had this amazing kind of opportunity to have this, but how can I get other people like me to kind of feel this same thing that I was able to feel, just similar to you as well with your story, in a sense of how you became CEO and you're a championing, wow.
That'll do.
Yeah, championing the outdoors and the purpose and the. So with your experience,
Yeah.
what I wanted to know, and my final question will be, how can other young people like me get into the outdoors much more?
God, that's a big one. And by the way, if there's anything we can do to help you with City Girl in Nature, do let us know, because I think it's brilliant. And the best, obviously, you are a better witness and champion than we can ever be, because people will want to hear from you more than they'll ever want to hear from, you know, a 56-year-old woman. I mean, because what you say matters. It's so important. So I'm thrilled. You've done as much for us as we've ever done for you, because the more you champion, the more young people, because you're far more believable, because it's so immediate for you. How can more young people get into the outdoors? Trust themselves. Take tiny steps. Only do what you enjoy. I suppose it's the hardest thing, isn't it? It's knowing it's yours, that you have an absolute right to it. I think it's that sense of entitlement that's so important. That every park, every street, you have a right to this. That they're a place that can make you feel good about yourself. And I suppose it's the small things that really make the big things exciting. You know, when we do big adventures, often we'll do training in the UK first, and going to Dartmoor can be as transformative as going to Iceland or to the Amazon. You can't know which experience is going to shake you or change your path most. And I suppose for me, the biggest thing is trying to enjoy the little things, because that takes you forward. That makes me sound a bit Buddhist, maybe. I don't know. I don't do faith. I don't have the right genes, but so it's just trying to enjoy the really little things, whether it's staring out of a window. It doesn't matter what floor you're on, but you know, if you can see the sun or the rain or anything else, and just thinking about what that is and what it means, and that you get to enjoy it just the same as anyone else, or growing something in a pot, or recognizing what that bird is that's singing, so it isn't just a bird that's waking you up, knowing what it is, and taking control of that and getting pleasure out of it, and realizing that you connect with it in a different way, and then sharing that with someone else. And there are amazing bird watching groups in London. There are incredible bird reserves all over London, in the East End and in West London and South London. And they're all amazing spaces to get outdoors and feel really different. You get to see more sky. And everybody has a right to them. A lot of them are free, and we should use what we have a right to. You're entitled to it, and I think it's that sense of fighting for things that you have a right to, and not feeling that you shouldn't be there. It's easy to say and so hard to do. Find a friend as well, someone who's go with you, because it's way less scary on your own when you're not on your own. Does any of that help at all?
Definitely, and I'm so happy to come down, and it's been my pleasure, in fact, because you're such an amazing person, and British Explorer Society has done a lot for me on my own journey also, so I couldn't not involve you guys.
It's lovely
to see. You
guys
have the wealth of information and stuff like that.
Well, just we're open to everyone, but like I said, you have done as much for us as the other way around. It's just such a pleasure to see you and to see you thriving. That means that means more than anything else. And keep coming back. You know, we've got people who still keep coming up our very long stairs, who went on expedition with us in the late 30s, so 1930s that is. So keep coming up the stairs, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 10, 20 or 30 years' time, although I don't promise to be here myself. So keep at it.
Thank you so much, Anna.